welcome inside to the opening drive. Nick Kosko alongside Mike Antosiewicz. We're underway week number 2, and I am here for the full show, so don't you folks out there worry. Got a packed show, packed hour. Start off with Rutgers football. Put a little glimpse back into Rutgers wrestling and the NCAA wrestling landscape as a whole as well. And
so
of course,
that means it's going to be a good show then.
I mean, it is going to be a good show because we do have wrestling. And, of course, we finish up the last half hour or so with NFL football, a nice Sunday slate of games. Personally, as an Eagles fan, Mike, I had a tough time watching yesterday. It was a rough one. Just heartbreaking in the end, and the Eagles like to play with my emotions, and I'm sure you did not watch the Jets game this weekend.
No, I didn't.
Of course you didn't, but that's okay.
But
because I expected you not to watch it.
But the one nice thing this weekend was, last weekend I'm not watching the game. I get all these texts from people. What's with the Jets? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're not very good. I know that. But no, they tackled their own player. I go, what do you mean? And then, of course, I had to look up the video where they had the pick six interception.
But this is week 1 now.
This is week 1.
Yeah, so you're even further behind.
This week, they were so bad that I didn't even get a text like that. They didn't even, cause
I think it was expected.
It was just,
and they were killed by the Raiders,
yes.
Correct? There was a blowout by the Raiders.
But Josh McCown had 2 touchdown passes, which was unbelievable to me. The fact that he could throw.
I think he's trying to win. Actually, did you ever think of that? All right. Anyway, we'll get into more in the NFL later on in the show, but we got to start Rutgers football, and what a weekend it was for the good old Scarlet Knights. Although they did win a game, they were pretty much expected to win. And if this game was anywhere closer, they even allowed a score this weekend. I think that would have been more cause for concern. But Rutgers does win 65-0 over the FCS basement dwellers, Morgan State Bears, who have not scored a single point this season, actually. And they continue that streak after Saturday, after a big defeat to the hands of the Scarlet Knights. But I think the star of the day, Mike, had to be the freshman quarterback, Jonathan Lewis, who was kind of coming in during spot duty last week against Eastern Michigan, and where Chris Ash was using him a la Tylen Oden last year, just throwing him in kind of randomly and just seeing what happens. But this week there was kind of a plan. He let Lewis run a couple drives. He scored 5 touchdowns. Very impressive, again, even though it was an FCS team. But the freshmen were on display, Mike. Jonathan Lewis had 5 touchdowns, 4 rushing, 1 throwing. Raheem Blackshear had 2 touchdowns and also had over 100 yards rushing. And Bo Melton finally got in on the action. They found him. Kyle Bolin found him deep at one point in the game. Big catch for 48 yards. So I think the young Bucks were on display here, and there's some good things to like, Mike, out of this game for the future. For the present time, though, I want to focus on this is a game they had to win, and they were expected to win this big. Now they won this game. They're sitting at 1-2. Probably should have been 2-1 after last week. Now they go into their Big Ten schedule, starting with Nebraska this weekend on the road, and then Ohio State to round out the month at home. This is the brutal part of their schedule, or begins the brutal part of their schedule.
Well, these 2 weeks.
Well, of course.
Because then after that, it's Purdue and Illinois.
Of course. I don't think they're in any that much better of a position than they were after the loss last week. They just now have a win in that win-loss column.
Listen, I said this during the pregame show multiple times. The most frustrating thing about this Morgan State game for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, and for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights fans, really, is that it's inconclusive. No matter what happens, unless Rutgers lost, then you could conclude that this team is awful. No matter what happens, besides obviously the loss, if they win by 25, if they win by 35, even though they win by 65 points, it doesn't really tell you anything about the right here and now. This Morgan State team was not a helpful barometer for the Rutgers fan to gauge what exactly is happening with this Rutgers team right now. And you know that because Zach Allen even had a chance to play at quarterback.
I think all 4 quarterbacks played.
Yeah, all 4 quarterbacks did play. I mean, that's the point. Rutgers won, but I don't think we could actually look at this game and analyze anything because it doesn't really tell us anything. The good thing I think about this game, and one of the callers called up on the post-game show, on Nightline, and said this, and I wasn't thinking about this at all, but I think this caller is actually quite correct. The team has a win. The last time they had a win was week 3 last season.
Literally a calendar year to the day.
Literally a calendar year to the day. And you know what? Coming off a win, it's a different feeling. It's a different sort of enthusiasm.
Oh, it certainly feels
it's a different
good.
Sort of energy. So perhaps, now, even though this win was inconclusive for the Rutgers fan, it was actually beneficial to the team itself, not only because it wasn't a loss, but because being a rare victory, it injects a little something into this team going into what is, quite frankly, a vulnerable Nebraska team.
Yeah, and when you talk about Nebraska, I mean, that was, I would say, Mike, probably circled as a loss to start the season. I don't know about you, but if we were looking at that schedule to start the game, or to start the season, you were looking at, okay, Washington a loss, I would say Eastern Michigan a win, Morgan State a win. You know, when you look at these Big Ten schedule, or look at the Big Ten schedule, there's just not a lot of wins to go around unless you're looking at Purdue and Illinois going the season. But even Purdue doesn't look like a cakewalk either. But Nebraska has to be a surprise this season, considering they are also 1-2, and they just lost to Northern Illinois. They got in on the MAC action as well, because Rutgers lost to the MAC squad, Eastern Michigan, last week, and Nebraska loses at home as well. They lost to Northern Illinois, and they didn't look like they were in that game at all on Saturday.
No, and, you know, these things cut both ways. You could say, wow, they are very vulnerable. And it's true, they are vulnerable. But the fact of the matter is they just lost at home. Now they have a second home game against, you know, what is a weak Scarlet Knights team. Although we do boast that this team is improving. You know, maybe that loss was what, you know, invigorates this Nebraska team. And maybe they come out with, you know, flames throwing. I
do think this is by far probably the worst case scenario for Rutgers.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have went into this game in Lincoln this coming weekend, which, by the way, myself and Mike Antosiewicz will be on the call for this Saturday at 3:30. Make sure to tune in for that, starting at 2:30 for the pregame show. Then we'll be on the call promptly at 3:30. And then, of course, Nightline after the postgame. Now that I got my promo out of the way, Mike, Rutgers could have came into this game 2-1 after wins over Eastern Michigan and Morgan State, and Nebraska's coming in at 1-2. But obviously that's not the case. Both teams 1-2. But look at Nebraska's schedule. I mean, they beat Arkansas State only by 7 to start the year. They were dismantled by Oregon. Close game, but a shootout. But then they lost a close one at home to Northern Illinois.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Rutgers, they're going to play a vulnerable team, but they're also playing a team that is...
It's also a very tough place to play.
It's a tough place to play, but also is backed into a corner, right? And during my high school football career, how unglamorous it was, you know, one of my coaches always said, you know, play like a caged animal. Like, you just... everything's on the line. You know what I mean? And that's what Nebraska is right now. You know, their AD is coming out, voicing frustration over the losses. It's not.
I mean, if I were their AD, I mean that is a historically great football program. If not, I mean, it's not great, but it's a very good football program historically. They don't look good at all right now.
Yeah. So, you know, the fact that their backs are against the wall and they are a historically great school, you have to assume that there's going to be some sort of response out of this Nebraska team, and it'd be really interesting to see what Rutgers could do, because right now, just looking at the level of play, the quality of play, Rutgers definitely has a chance to win this game. I know it's on the road; it'll be extremely difficult.
I mean, there's always a chance. I mean,
you have to assume Rutgers is better than Northern Illinois. I still mean this. They're better than Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, of course they are.
They laid an egg that game.
Of course they did. And you know, you look at this game. I thought going into this one, they probably are definitely not going to win this game. But then when you analyze it, it's like, okay, if they keep within 2 scores, maybe that's a respectable loss on the road to a very tough opponent. But now you got to be. I mean, I know Rutgers is coming off a win against an FCS program, and it shouldn't really mean that much. Other than it's one win, and you got the monkey off your back, and now you have to focus on the Big Ten schedule. But as you said, Mike, Nebraska is very vulnerable, and you got to think Rutgers can come into this stadium and come into Lincoln, Nebraska this weekend and play a really competitive game, if not pull off an upset, because we saw the potential of this team week 1 on display at home against Washington under the lights. They lost 30-14, but they were winning that game for a good portion of that first half, even into the third quarter. They were competitive with a top 10 team. If they can play at that level with Nebraska this weekend, I don't see why there's no reason for an upset.
Oh, if Rutgers plays like they did against Washington,
for a full game,
against for the rest of the schedule, they're walking away with 4, maybe even 5 wins this season. That's how high the level of play was for that Washington game. So you're right.
But it's amazing. But it's amazing that level of play is only 4 to 5 wins. But compared to last year, that's night and day. To borrow a phrase from the basketball team, that is a huge improvement if they won 4 to 5 games this year.
Oh, I'm telling you, I think 2 games. If they win one more game for the season, but it's a Big Ten win, that's already improvement from last year. And so maybe this could be it. And then if Rutgers wins this game, also next week is against Ohio State, and no one.
Well, we know that. You could put an L in the column right there.
No, if they win this game, and then they have a lot of energy, and then they have the 2 games against Purdue and Illinois, and they play really close games, and perhaps they even split those. There's a lot of energy around this team.
They're 3-3 through 6 games, and that's almost like
3-3 through 6
best
games.
case scenario.
People are saying, "Oh, that EMU game, it was just it was an anomaly." But if they go out and lose this week by 3 touchdowns, and then they get destroyed by Ohio State, and then they play Purdue good, but then after failing against Purdue, ultimately Illinois is a letdown, then the rest of the season is just going to be a drag. It
really will, because there's really not many more winnable games after that Illinois Purdue slate. Once you're halfway through the season, basically, just hypothetically, if you say they're going to win. Or if they lose this weekend, they're sitting there at 1-3. They're 1-4 after Ohio State. That's 5 games into the season, and then just say they lose both, and they're 1-6 through 7 games after the bye week. They might not win another game after that, just because that schedule's really tough. Maryland's no pushover in November at Yankee Stadium. They're a much improved team. They're not going to beat Michigan on the road unless some miracle happens. And then you look at the November schedule, as I mentioned, starts with Maryland at Yankee Stadium. They still have to play at Indiana, at Penn State, and then they host Michigan State. Some of these tough teams haven't even been in part of the schedule yet. This is the easy part of the schedule right now, aside from Ohio State. And what I also found interesting, Mike, as we wrap up our little preview of this week's game against Nebraska, I'm looking at what ESPN has. ESPN ranks the Big Ten every week. Obviously, if we go right down the list, they have Penn State 1, they have Wisconsin 2, Ohio State 3. Michigan 4, the usual suspects up top. They have Maryland at number 5,
which kills me.
Which, I mean, it goes to show you how far ahead Maryland has been in this recruiting race since both teams joined the Big Ten, and they have improved every year. And they still own the quote unquote Big Ten series versus Rutgers, which I believe is only 2-1. And I think they have an overall series lead on Rutgers 7-6 in their meetings. Iowa 6, Michigan State 7, right in the middle of the pack. Purdue's one who surprises me. They're 8. After being 11 last week, they're 8, and they're looking pretty good because they pretty much dominated Missouri, one of those bottom feeder SEC teams. Indiana's 9, Minnesota's 10, Northwestern's 11. They moved up Rutgers from dead last to 12 after the win over Morgan State. I think that's given a little bit too much credit to the Scarlet Knights, but I guess it shows that Rutgers got a good win in everybody else's eyes. But they have Nebraska at 13,
and also I don't think it was a great win. I mean,
I don't think it was a great win. They did what they were supposed to do.
It's inconclusive, so now I can't go back on what I said and say, oh, now let's analyze this because I said it really doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is, no one could look at the passing game after that MSU game last week for Rutgers and say, oh, the passing game looks completely fixed now. I mean, but your leading receiver only had 1 catch.
And that was his first catch of the season.
Yeah, it was his first catch of the season.
That's not.
There's no dependable passing game yet. But let me just finish this point.
Of course.
The good thing is, Nick, Nebraska's offense right now is also down the tank.
Pretty bad, yeah.
And their offensive line is also an issue. So if I don't know where Kamoko Toure has been. Maybe we should devote a segment to that because it's so frustrating. But if Kamoko Toure plays like he did against Washington, against Nebraska, and that defensive line could get pressure, Kevin Wilkins is out there. He was getting some pressure. And the Nebraska offense really struggles. It might be that Rutgers only needs to put together 3 scoring drives to win this game. And that would be fantastic.
I think the good thing going into this game this weekend is the fact that you mentioned that both offenses have been struggling. Look at Nebraska quarterback Tanner Lee. He threw 3 picks on Saturday against Northern Illinois, 2 pick sixes. He's got 7 on the season already through 3 games. It's pretty bad. And with their offensive line also in shambles, there's no reason why you mentioned Kamoko Toure in this defensive line, especially guys like Kamoko Toure and Sebastian Joseph has been playing phenomenal football the first 3 weeks of the season. Whether he shows up on the stat sheet or not, he's been a disruptive force. If you have those 2 guys teeing off on this Nebraska offensive line, they're going to make the day long for Tanner Lee, and it's going to put Rutgers in better situations. But there needs to be improved play all around, in my mind, if Rutgers is going to pull off a victory this weekend. But I just found it interesting that in this media sense, they put Nebraska below Rutgers just because after that loss Saturday, Nebraska just is kind of going down the toilet a little bit. And Illinois is dead last, by the way, for those who couldn't make that guess.
But the caged animal theory, this is where it kicks in, right? That they are like caged animals right now. So Rutgers has to be very wary because they start off games slow. This Rutgers team, they do
start very slow.
MSU.
Yes, absolutely.
And the fact of the matter is, I'm sure there's a lot of jittery players in that Nebraska locker room. And if Rutgers doesn't do anything on offense for the first 3 drives, and then on the 4th drive they finally get 2 first downs instead of 1, you're going to allow the Nebraska to just be right in that game, and that's also would be a very unfortunate occurrence for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, because then all momentum is just drained out of that game.
Yeah, my last point here is that that they need to build. I mean, like I said, and like you said, Mike, this win shouldn't mean too much, but it should just mean that it's just a win, and that's something to build off of, especially for the young guys. They got their first college win, and they need to build off that and carry the momentum into Lincoln this Saturday. But we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk a little bit Rutgers wrestling, and we're going to pull up some rankings. The full Flow Wrestling rankings are out for every single weight class. We'll talk about what Rutgers wrestlers are ranked and what that means moving forward, heading into the season, and also the first match. Of course, Iowa, and also the first match on November 4th at Yankee Stadium against Maryland. Make sure to keep it locked. You're listening to the opening drive here on 88.7 WRSU FM in New Brunswick. Welcome back inside to the opening drive. Nick Kosko, Mike Antosiewicz with you. 18 past the hour here. We'll take you up to 9 o'clock. Little Rutgers wrestling talk right now. And Mike, I mean, I think you got to be pleased. I know we usually follow the Intermat rankings. That's a little more official. That's more of the wrestling writers and not this new age and wave of wrestling reporters like Flow Wrestling. Although they do a great job of keeping up to date on a lot of news. But we'll follow Intermat when that comes out. But for right now, we're starting with the Flow Wrestling rankings as far as Rutgers wrestlers goes. And Mike, they got 6 of their 10 right now are ranked prematurely. I mean, I wouldn't say prematurely, but these preliminary rankings, Rutgers already has 6 guys ranked. That's got to be a record for before. That's got to be a record for the preseason.
What was it, 4 last season?
It might have been 4. I would say Ashton and Richie Lewis before he got hurt.
Tyson Dippery was.
I think Tyson Dippery was ranked as well. So I mean, it just goes to show you.
This year he's ranked, Tyson Dippery, at 33.
No, he's not ranked.
Okay.
If you were referring to last year,
I was referring to last year.
Yes, he was ranked last year.
It was Dippery, Ashnault,
Theobald,
and Richie Lewis.
I would say that was it.
Okay, maybe Gravino. Oh, probably Gravino. Maybe last year they actually did have 6.
Maybe they had 5. I don't know.
That's 6. Okay.
All I know is they have 6 right now, and while we're waiting for the rest of the rankings to load, we do know. Got to start at the top. Nick Suriano, number 3 in the country, only behind Darian Cruz, the defending national champion, and of course number 1, Nathan Tomasello from Ohio State, who is dropping back down to 125 after back-to-back third-place finishes at 133. So he's a senior now, Mike. Nathan Tomasello's after blood, looking for his 2nd national title at 125 pounds. But I think overall, that is a good start to Nick Suriano's Rutgers career by him being ranked number 3 in the country.
Yeah, and you could make the case right now that he could even be number 1.
Could, absolutely.
But I don't think, and this is just from my experience, our experience talking with him and following him, I don't think he really cares about the rankings right now. And that's
I think he just cares about winning. And
I just think he cares about winning.
That's the proper mentality.
And apparently Coach Goodell said his offense has really improved. And I go back to that match against Gilman last year, the Penn State-Iowa match, and all he needed that match was a takedown at the very end. He got in on Gilman in some instances, not great angles though. I mean, if his offense is really that improved, I don't know what will allow somebody to stop him this year. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what his weakness will be. He's already beaten Cruz before. Now Tomasello is a beast and a tank, but if he's better at offensively, you have to assume that he's a faster wrestler. At least that's what I'm doing. And if he's a faster wrestler, Now, we've seen Tomasello have trouble against some guys because he's not very fast, and he's so strong and bulky that he isn't the most agile. And if Soriano's faster, I think he might be able to counter what is the strength of Nathan Tomasello. So I really mean it. Right now, these rankings are irrelevant because we really don't have that much to go on. We need to see how it shakes up, but it could be a few matches into this season. Soriano's already at number 1.
I mean, yeah, look at that. You gotta look at that. I think as far as the rankings are concerned, I don't think you can really say Soriano's going to go number 1 until he beats Tomasello because they've never wrestled before, and they are, based on most of the rankings, I would say. And
that's a Rutgers home match, I believe, right? That Ohio State
it is,
match.
but you have to wait and see if they're even going to wrestle, considering Tomasello is kind of pulling a Kyle Slender of 2 years ago, where he's doing half world team stuff and half the college season. So it remains to be seen whether if Tomasello's even going to wrestle in that match against Rutgers.
Do you have to take classes if you do the world team stuff?
How
does that work?
I really don't know. I think if you're just that good, they're just going to be like, you know what? You do your classes later. You go represent the country and try to win something. And, well, of course, Kyle Snyder did. Speaking of Kyle Snyder, I mean, we'll get to the heavyweight in just a few minutes, but Kyle Snyder, obviously, Mike, number 1 in the country. There's no debate about that. Even with Adam Kuhn back. Adam Kuhn, by the way, one of our favorite wrestlers to watch from Michigan. He's already ranked
unbelievable.
He's already ranked number 2. And you know what I found out, Mike? He took a redshirt year, not for an injury, which I thought he was injured last year. He took a redshirt year to focus on academics because he's majoring. Just take a wild guess as to what he's majoring in.
Biochem.
Aerospace engineering. This dude is smart.
God.
I don't blame him for taking a year off from wrestling to focus on a degree in aerospace engineering. He's going to be making more money than I'll ever see in my life.
Yeah.
Well, when we go down the list now, Mike, at 133, Scott Del Vecchio, number 11. Thought it was a nice little placement for him, considering he was one match away from being an All-American last season. So that kind of means he was top 12 of the 2017 season, as then we head to 17-18. I think it's a solid spot for him at the moment. The guys in front of him, you look at Connor Schramm from Stanford. Don't know much about him. Luke Pletcher.
I think that's a pretty interesting
Luke Pletcher
pick.
already ranked ahead of him. They haven't wrestled before, but he dropped from 141 due to, we'll get into 141 right after this, obviously, but Luke Pletcher drops to number 9 as he drops down a weight and goes to number 9. Other guys on there, you don't see many Big Ten guys except Mitch McKee from Minnesota, who we saw last year was pretty solid. And look at Stephen Micic, who we both think is going to be fantastic. He's already ranked number 2. He's only a sophomore.
Oh, this kid is so good. And what was really fun to see last year is his growth during the tournaments. Came out in Big Tens and was on fire. Came out at nationals and was even hotter than it was hotter than ever. I mean, this kid is on an upward ascendancy right now, an exponential ascendancy, and it'd be really interesting to see how far he could take it before inertia finally holds him. And
well, I mean, you gotta say he's definitely a national title contender this season at the weight. As far as the Vecchio goes, I think, like I said, the ranking from Flo right here at number 11, that's pretty respectable for Del Vecchio to start the season, considering that's probably right around where he was just last year. There are guys in front of him, but I feel like he's going to jump eventually, and in the end, I think this ranking kind of reflects where Del Vecchio is and where he strives to be. He's just outside the top 8, which would mean he's an All-American, but he was one match away from that last year, and I think that this goes to show that he's in the right spot and he has something to look forward to, or at least try to strive and earn this season, and he's right on the cusp of getting onto that podium. We move on to 141 as we'll kind of roll these a little quicker. Anthony Ashnault placed right there in the All-American slots, right at number 5. Kind of respectable right there, Mike. Obviously, Ashnault's a national title contender. He's gone 8th, 4th, and 6th in his 3 All-American place win. I don't know how to actually explain it into words. He's been an All-American 3 times. 8th place, 4th place, 6th place. Guys in front of him, the 2-time champ, Dean Hyland, number 1. Kevin Jack, who has given Ashnault a lot of fits over the years. He's number 2. Bryce Merritt.
But whom Mike Van Brill has interestingly beaten.
In freestyle. Bryce Merritt at number 3. I thought that was very interesting. They put him up that high. I think they're kind of going based off last year's All-American placements. Jaden Ironman, number 4 from Missouri, who beat Ashnault last year.
Which kills me. We talked about this at Nationals last year. I said, Nick, he needs to win this one just so he's in front of somebody. Because right now, he has 4 people to surpass, for the national title. I know it's only rankings, doesn't really matter, but still, you needed to win that match against Ironman. But you could just tell everything deflated from that balloon.
Of course.
He was running on, not even fumes.
Right. And Joey McKenna, he is back. He's not redshirting. Seems to be fine now. He's at Ohio State now, Mike. He transferred from Stanford to Ohio State. He's ranked number 6, and I thought that was pretty interesting, the fact that McKenna owns the head-to-head 1-0 between him and Ashnault, but they put him behind Ashnault just based on last year's All-American placements, as McKenna had a dud in the tournament last year.
In the tournament, and you have to remember something, and we talked about this off the air at Nationals. After the Kolodzik match, everyone thought that Ashnault
was going to win.
I would say everyone thought Ashnault had a real shot against Hale, so no one counted him out. And then there was a large portion of the of the sports reporters there at Nationals that thought Ashnault was going to win, that it was his time. I mean, he was so hot after that Kolodzik match. He looked so good. And I think the wrestling community really thought that this was going to be, Ashnault just hit his moment.
I think that's where he can show. He shows his. I mean, we've seen his potential. I mean, he hasn't. I don't think he's ever even surpassed his potential. His potential as national champion. But that was a championship level match right there between him and Kolodzik in the quarterfinals last year. He showed what he could do, and he dominated. He thoroughly dominated Kolodzik. It may not have been on the scoreboard, but you could tell he controlled that entire match and showed, this is what I can do, and this is what I can do to win me a national title.
Yeah. I mean, he had everything in that moment. That's what makes it so heartbreaking looking back at it. But, there's no reason, barring injuries, which actually might be an issue this year, but, there's no reason that he can't beat Hale, because Hale's not going to come out and be aggressive.
We know Dean Hiles, he's a very defensive wrestler.
And same thing with Kevin Jack.
They're both very defensive wrestlers.
They're both very defensive, so... if he has that one move, that last year we talked about, he really didn't have his ankle picks there as much. It looked like he was more versatile, but that didn't have those three
didn't have the
moves.
Didn't have the one or two moves that say, I'm gonna do this, and you can't stop me.
But I mean, if you get that this year, there's no reason why he could beat those guys, because I mean, he frankly got pinned against Gulabon last year.
And that's Jimmy Gulabon, who's no longer there
during that dual meet. So, Hale's beatable, Kevin Jack's beatable. You just have to take it to them. And if he's not injured and has the energy and the intensity to take it,
there's no reason he can't win.
And he has that one move. There's no reason why he can't win a national championship.
Exactly.
But again, we still have to see improvement, right?
Of course.
We're not just saying
always room.
The cards need to fall out differently than they did last year. No, there needs to be he needs to change the cards. There needs to be some change on his part. But
right.
Again, there's really nothing that I say right now prevents him from winning the national championship.
Right. We'll move on. We'll stick to the rankings, the one that feature Rutgers wrestlers. So we're going to skip 149 as Elazar DeLuca is expected to be the starter, but we have not seen him in a varsity match.
The coaching staff.
The coaching staff is hot.
The team likes him a lot.
Of course, they like him. Not much of the rest of the country knows him, so we'll see how he does this season. But we're going to go right to 157, the return of Richie Lewis. Not ranked last year, according to Flo, of course, unless it was the preseason. He's back at 157, coming off an injury last year, where last year should have been his last year, but he took the medical red shirt. He's back. They put him right in at number 7, Mike, and I think there's a lot of room for Richie Lewis to go straight up these rankings, because you have Jason Nolf, obviously the 2-time defending champ from Penn State, is at number 1. Joey Lavallee, who's back for his senior year from Missouri, he was the runner-up last year.
And Lewis beat him.
Of course, and Richie Lewis beat him earlier in basically his first match last year. It was that All-Star Classic match. Michael Kemmerer, the sophomore from Iowa, who's really, really good. He's fantastic. He's number 3. Micah Jordan, Mike, has bumped up from 149 to 157 from Ohio State. He's number 4 already. Tyler Berger from Nebraska is number 5. Rich Lewis has beaten him as well.
3 times, right?
I believe so. Joe Smith from Oklahoma State, number 6. And, of course, Richie Lewis, 7. Alec Panaleo from Michigan, number 8. He was also very good. And worth mentioning, a Jersey guy, he's number 9, just outside the All-American picture right now. B.J. Clagan, going into his senior year. He's from Ryder.
2-time state champ, right?
Yes, and he beat South Plain. I think he beat Dylan Payton from South Plainfield in the one state final match a couple years ago.
Was it Payton?
I think it was, and he did the old the old little triangle and shattered it in front of the South Plainfield section. It was pretty entertaining. Anyway, look at Lewis, Mike. He's beaten Berger before. He's beaten Lavallee more. You can make the argument Richard Lewis should be a top 5, top 4 guy right now. You can make but the only thing is, he was hurt last year, had 2 matches. So I guess it makes sense to place him where he's at right now, but they know how good he is.
Listen, Lavallee showed improvement throughout last season, so I could understand where.
He was the runner-up.
He was the runner-up, but he also improved through last season. So he's not the same wrestler as he was at the beginning of last year. So I understand why Lavallee's ahead of Lewis. Berger, I don't understand. I think Lewis right now should just be 2 spots higher. He should be at 5. Micah Jordan's going to be really interesting. I mean, that Ohio State match is going to be so interesting, especially if Tomasello wrestles for Rutgers. But I'm telling you, Iowa. I've said this a few times. Keep on saying this. I think Rutgers actually has the matchup advantage against Iowa. But
of course,
if Lewis beats Kemmerer, I mean
that's huge.
It's huge. I think Rutgers might walk out of that match with 7 victories in 10 matches. I mean, that
just the way it lines. Yeah, just the way it lines up. The lower weights are in the advantage of Rutgers. Then you have to see what the up weights can do, as it seems per usual every year. Just to quickly wrap up, 57, and Richard Lewis, as we mentioned, the potential to move up pretty high. It's going to be interesting to see these Big Ten matchups, and of course, when it comes to tournament time, we could see Richard Lewis make a bit of a run. We're going to skip over 165 as Rutgers. I don't even think we know who's going to start there. Probably John Van Brill.
It's going to be Van Brill.
But I think
actually Grello. I mean,
it could be Grello too. I think just because Van Brill, who was ranked at a couple times in a couple polls last year at 57, just because he's bumping up, I don't think he has enough pedigree to get the ranking from Flo at this point. But we'll see how he rolls. I mean, we'll see how he does going back up a weight. 174, Jordan Pagano was ranked. He was put at 14. I thought that was pretty nice to put Pagano top 15 in the country at 174. I mean, obviously, 174 is kind of Big Ten heavy. If you look at the top 8, obviously Mark Hall, the true sophomore, defending champion, number 1 from Penn State. Zahid Valencia, only a sophomore from Arizona State. He was the runner-up last year.
Is he a redshirt sophomore?
I believe he's a redshirt sophomore, yes. Bo Jordan, the senior, he is back for Ohio State at number 3. And Miles Amin, who's another one of those really big studs from Michigan. He's number 4, only a sophomore. Daniel Lewis from Missouri. Ryan Preach from Lehigh, who actually was defeated by Pagano. They split last year. Pagano got the one-up on him in the dual meet last year. Ethan Ramos from North Carolina is number 7. Brandon Womack from Cornell rounds it out in the top 8. So as far as Big Ten guys in front of Pagano, Mike, we have Hall, Bo Jordan, Miles Amin, and that's pretty much it. They feel he is the 4th best 74-pounder in the Big Ten. That's pretty respectable. We'll just see how far he can shoot up the rankings this year and see if he can make a better run in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. You know what? It's going to be really interesting this year. Who's the better Big Ten team, Michigan or Ohio State at wrestling? That's going to be really, interesting.
Michigan features a lot of highly ranked studs, and they're all young. They're all young, too, and they get some big guys back as well. We'll go to 184. Nick Gravina, placed right outside the top 10, or excuse me, the top 8. He is number 10 going into his senior year. They actually have that wrong. He's not a junior. He is going to be a senior. But as far as Big Ten guys ahead of him, Bo Nickel, of course, going at number 1 from Penn State. Miles Martin, they're putting at number 2, despite the fact Martin finished, I believe he finished 5th last year in the tournament. But
I have no clue how Miles Martin is number 2.
But he's beaten Bo Nickel a couple of times, and he has his number a bit. So I don't. And plus, a lot of guys. You got to remember, a lot of guys graduated after last year. So I would say those are your 2 best guys. Peter Renda from NC State is number 3. He must be coming back from a retro year because he wasn't ranked last year. Drew Foster from UNI, right at number 4. Dominic Abonator from Michigan. Mike, we didn't see him last year, but we saw him 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was really. Didn't he?
Actually, he did wrestle last year.
No, I don't think he did wrestle last year. But who? No, did Pantaleo not wrestle last year? And Abonator did. I don't remember.
I think Abonator wrestled. I think he took a red shirt midway through the year last year because we were at Michigan just last season, and he was not wrestling.
Yeah.
I think he took a red shirt midway through the year due to an injury, but he is a stud as well. He's already back at number 5. Emery Parker from Illinois, one of Nick Gravina's kryptonites. He's at number 6. Zach Zavetsky from Virginia Tech, number 7. And Jordan Ellingwood rounds out the preseason All-Americans at number 8 from Central Michigan. But Nick Gravina, Mike, here's another guy, 1 match away. I think he's right there. He can certainly make the move up, and I would expect an All-American placement for Nick Gravina come Cleveland in 2018, or come March, I would say.
You know, it's a lot of new faces in the upper echelon of this 184-pound class, so I don't know enough about how these guys are going to do right now to make any definitive remarks. But he's a guy that needs to improve, dude. I mean,
he's right there.
Listen, he's really good,
there's
but
matches where
he needs
so
to make
good.
a jump. He does need to make a jump. And
he hasn't made the jump yet.
Yeah, he really needs a jump.
I mean, other than that, I think Rutgers is pretty solid with those ranked guys. 197 is not ranked because we're expecting Kevin Mulligan at 187, but
who's one in that weight class right now?
What's that?
Who's number one in that weight class?
Colin Moore from Ohio State. He is number one, and he's been killing it. He's been killing it on the world team stuff as well. And of course, Kyle Snyder, the number one at heavyweight, also from Ohio State. No Rutgers wrestlers at 197 or heavyweight, but although you could expect, I would expect Mulligan to jump into the rankings at 197 and possibly Gross, Verzon Gross at heavyweight, maybe sneaks in at number 20.
Oh, let's go to heavyweight real quick. Am I going to heavyweight?
Yeah, of course. I mean, heavyweight obviously led by Kyle Snyder. Adam Kuhn's number 2 from Michigan, from Arizona State, number 3 is Tanner Hall, and Nick Neville's is at 4 from Penn State. And you got to look out for Iowa's Sam Stoll, who's coming back from injury this year. He's number 7 already, so that's going to be a tough match for Verzon Gross during that duel. I mean, Conan Jennings, Mike, who Gross beat twice last year.
That's what I wanted to say.
He's ranked number 10.
This is ridiculous. How is Conan Jennings 10 and then that's unbelievable?
I mean, it is amazing. I mean, you would think if he's number 10, you would think they would at least put Gross into the top 20, but Brooks Black from Illinois, he's number 20, so the heavyweight has to be stacked this year if they're putting Brooks Black at number 20 from Illinois. But it remains to be seen. It's very interesting.
But Conan Jennings is 10?
I'm very surprised by that, considering Gross beat him twice last year, and he was still snubbed by the committee to send him to Nationals last year. But we're going to take a quick break. Enough wrestling talk. We'll get more and more into it as the weeks go on, as I mentioned. But when we come back, we have NFL talk on the other side. We'll recap this weekend's games, talk about my Eagles, talk about Mike's Jets, regretfully, and we'll talk about the other games this weekend, and also take a look at quickly tonight's game between the Giants and the Lions. See if the Giants can rebound, but make sure to keep it locked. You're listening to The Opening Drive here on 88.7 WRSU FM in New Brunswick. Welcome back inside The Opening Drive, final segment of the show here, 8:41. Take you up to about 9 o'clock today. It's our first full show of the semester, Mike, considering last week I had to cut out early, and might I say you did a very fine job of finishing out that last half hour.
Oh, there's a lot of talk about with Rutgers football.
A lot of philosophical stuff, too. I liked it. I was listening on the way over into the city on the train ride over there. I enjoyed that. A very nice little philosophical touch to the show.
Well, it's hard to talk concretely about this Rutgers team because it just you get too depressed.
Yeah, I think once you go the philosophical stuff, you can feel hopeful. But,
yeah, exactly.
You just never know. Just a reminder to everybody, we are on every Monday morning, 8 to 9 a.m. throughout this first fall semester. Remains to be seen where we'll be placed come the spring semester. But for now, we are 8 to 9 every Monday morning, and then you can always listen to us here on 88.7 or online at WRSU.org, or download our app, WRSU, from the Apple App Store, also the App Store for Samsung's or whatever, Android, or the Android App Store, whatever it's called. Also, we're trying something different, Mike. A little experimentation today. Our show will be on video. It'll be on YouTube, hopefully by the end of today or by tomorrow morning, depending how long this editing process goes, but we're going to try it. So make sure to keep on the look for that. Be putting out links on our WRSU Sports Twitter account. Also, my own personal Twitter account. You can get our YouTube link where you can rewatch the show, or if in case you missed it, you can go catch it on YouTube and see our wonderful faces in the morning as well. As we say hi to Mike Pavlichko over there. He's in studio as well. Got to get his theme music prepped. Of course, as he walks in, Mike Pavlichko. How are you this morning, sir?
I forgot I had theme music.
You did. We actually were not expecting you this morning, so I was a little delayed on it.
I had some traffic, but I was.
I love this music.
No, I really wanted to get into the, I wanted to get here to see you guys. I missed you last week because you were on early.
We were on early. I don't know if you heard, but we are doing video. So I mean, you're out of the video shot unless you want to be. Do you want to be in the video shot?
Clearly, I have a face for radio.
Well, I mean, at least people saw you walk in. I guess that's the good thing. So that people,
With my Panera orange juice.
People can put a face to the voice.
And
How expensive is that Panera orange juice? Like $7?
I don't know. This $5.23 for all this.
Okay.
Not bad.
For the smorgasbord.
Is it a sandwich or just a
It's
bagel?
just a bagel with cream cheese.
That's not bad. With a fancy orange juice.
But we're going to find out if it's a real bagel or not.
I'm sure
That's
it's not.
true. I mean, Jersey bagels are pretty good, but it's a Panera bagel.
It's Panera, so it's
we
probably
don't know.
bread in the shape of a bagel is what it is.
It could be.
Yes.
It's something that you would find in like those those plastic wrappings at ShopRite or something. Those pre-made bagels.
My summers were empty without hearing you guys talking wrestling.
I hope you heard our nice little conversation this morning about the guys who are ranked.
Yes, I did.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, I think we are excited. Obviously, we have the NFL segment here right now.
Did you watch the NFL games?
Did you watch any games last night?
No, I didn't watch anything the first 2 weeks. I don't really watch much. Sunday is my only day I can do completely
Absolutely nothing.
And I watch so much football on Friday nights and Saturdays.
Well, how do you watch football on Fridays? I do know you cover high school football, but how do you watch?
I watch high school football game on Friday nights.
Do you just find the
That's what I
online
watch.
streams for Central Jersey?
No, I was at a game Friday night.
You were at a game on Friday night. There
I
you go.
was at Bridgewater and Hillsborough went for two to win the game with a couple minutes left.
Oh, I see.
And did not get it. They could have tied the
least
extra
there was at
point.
least-
They did not
Did
play
they
for
miss
overtime.
an extra point earlier in the game?
No. They just did not
they
play
made-
for over. It was kind of a wacky back and forth thing.
Okay.
There was a field goal involved somewhere.
At least there was an exciting game for you to watch, and we'll conclude your theme music. I thought that was pretty good. It was a decent entrance. So I guess we weren't prepared for it. I guess next time we'll be more prepared
There's
for your
a
entrance.
lot you won't be prepared for this
Well,
year.
of course.
But did you guys talk Rutgers football? Because I probably missed that while I was walking.
We did.
We didn't talk about it that much. So
the thing is, we'll still brush up on the NFL to end the show, but
Yeah, I don't want to take your
no,
time.
of course, but when
you're not taking any time.
No, but when you discuss Rutgers football as on the fly, changing the format of the show here, there wasn't much to talk about. We figured they won a game they were supposed to win. Anything less than what they did on Saturday, you have to be disappointed. They did what they were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
They got their first win in that win column. It's a confidence builder, I would say, for the Young Bucks, and they're going up against the Nebraska team, albeit on the road. Nebraska's playing pretty bad as well. You got to feel good. Rutgers has to feel good about themselves, considering they finally got something going with the young guys.
Yes.
But the passing game is not sorted out.
No, it's not.
They need to figure something out.
Listen, I'm going to say this.
Say it.
I said, and you asked me, Mike, on Friday, you asked me what's going to happen.
Yes.
And I said, I don't know.
And I actually talked about that on the pregame show.
I talked about it on my show on Saturday on the other station. I said, someone asked me what was going to happen. And I said, I really don't know. Yeah. And I said, I think this game will tell you more than any other game ever against an FCS team.
Okay.
Because most times a game against Howard, Morgan State tells you nothing because you're supposed to win it by 65 points. But the way this team played against Eastern Michigan, I think it tells you a lot that they came out and they took care of business and they did what a Big Ten program should do against a team like Morgan State.
Kill them.
Which has beat Howard the last 3 years in a row, by the way. And Howard led us 14-0 at halftime, or 14-0 at one point in the game last year. So they did what they needed to do in the game. They have to get better, sure. The worst thing that happened to Rutgers was Nebraska losing.
I know.
Weekend.
That's what I said.
That's what we were saying before, because they lost to they got it on the MACtion as well. They're losing to Northern Illinois.
Well, let me tell you, I'm reading a column yesterday by a guy from the Omaha World News.
Oh God, Omaha World News.
No, listen, Nebraska. This is a program
in turmoil.
In turmoil right now. An athletic department in turmoil. People there aren't happy with the AD. People there aren't happy with the coach. People there aren't happy with the football team.
Rutgers better take advantage right now. They'll never beat Nebraska again.
I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they're going to beat Nebraska.
But
this team right now is ripe. I mean, from reading this column, and I'm not around Nebraska football all the time, but from reading this column and reading all the stuff that's going on, you could probably, if you were a Nebraska fan, you could probably smell that loss coming a mile away. And Northern Illinois is not a chump MAC team.
No, they're not a chump MAC team, but they're still a MAC team. They got it on the action.
So,
But I'm telling you,
look, what's worse, Nebraska losing to Northern Illinois or Rutgers losing to Eastern Michigan?
Oh, Nebraska, because
Clearly,
yeah. But
this team is ripe for the.
Based on
did
the
Northern
pedigree,
Illinois
yes.
win a bowl game last year, though?
Well, I tweeted.
No.
I tweeted this yesterday. I said, "Well, Rutgers already cost one Big Ten head coach a job in 2014. Maybe we can get another one fired."
I mean,
listen.
Look at that. I mean, they cost Brady Hoke his job.
Now, do you think if do you think if...
Wait, actually, that's a good point. Sorry to cut you off, Mike, but I mean, look at that. Michigan was a program kind of in turmoil back in 2014, and then of course they get Jim Harbaugh
And
the next year.
of course, that game was at home, but for Rutgers. But it's
a huge win.
You go ahead and beat Nebraska this weekend. There will be, there will be riots in Nebraska.
the cornfields will be set on fire.
And there's going to be parties in the streets over here at College Ave.
The price of your corn muffins going up, my friend, because the corn crop, the hurricane destroyed the peach crop, and they're talking about the pies being more expensive now because all the peaches are gone in Georgia. Nebraska, forget it. Ethanol, through the roof. Buy stock in ethanol this weekend. Get on the commodities market and get something.
Well, we are certainly looking forward to it.
Corn futures are going to just go
But seriously,
to the roof.
If Nebraska coach, if he loses to Rutgers this weekend, do you think he gets fired in the post game?
No, but it'll be like
It'll
be like it was with Hoke. It'll be the nail in the coffin for sure.
Of course,
I guarantee you. Very impressed with John Lewis, by the way.
Hey, what 5 touchdowns? You gotta be impressed. Coach Ash fine used him right and not spot.
But Mike, no offense, you and I could have run some of those touchdowns.
That's also true. But
no, I know.
The
offensive line did a nice job paving the way for him. I know the one he was untouched. The other one you can't tackle him with an arm.
Of course, he's a big body.
You need two guys to tackle him.
He's an athlete.
But
if he gets in space, forget about it.
Last thing, though, the Rutgers offensive line is much better than the Nebraska offensive line. I can't believe I'm saying this, but between
is much better than the what offensive line?
The Nebraska offensive line. The Nebraska offensive line is
kind of shocking to say. They're in shambles.
So
those corn-fed kids are big and strong.
You would think they'd be pretty much road graders at this point.
But I mean, if there's ever an opportunity. If they could establish a running game of Gus Edwards, and man, he's big, and now Josh Hicks is back in the action, and Mark Martin, if they could, I'm telling you, if they could come out fast, and get a early field goal through the running game, it's right in their hands.
That was about the only disappointment, Antosh, of Saturday was that they had to punt on that first possession.
Oh my god!
That they couldn't come out and score because we were
twice.
Starting to think
2 times. I was like, I was listening to it. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
That first drive didn't have 65-0 written all over it. I can tell you that. But
definitely did not.
Rutgers' offensive line might be better than Jets' offensive line. No, I'm kidding.
No, let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right, say something funny, Mike. Thanks, Mike.
See you guys.
Mike Pavlichko, everybody.
What is it already?
As he'll make his exit out of here. Mike Pavlichko, always great to have him. Always changing the show, keeping us on our toes.
He's a hero.
He is a hero. Helped us out
not only
multiple
a man,
times.
Not only a myth, but also a legend.
Oh, there he goes. He has gone off into the distance. There he goes, flying away, and he is gone. Gives us the nice little good old salute. So Mike Pavlichko exits the building, Mike, and now we have a few minutes left to talk about NFL football, but, it's all in good fun. Always enjoy a nice little surprise from Pav. Quick rundown on these scores, Mike. Obviously, there was too much time to talk about Houston and Cincinnati. I don't even want to get into that because
Cincinnati, I mean,
they look terrible.
They might cut Andy Dalton for the next year.
If I'm the Bengals, why not start A.J. McCarron at this point? They obviously don't want to trade him for a reason. Just start him. It's unbelievable when you talk about the Bengals. And the Texans, they're in good hands with Deshaun Watson, but he's a rookie, so we'll see how that goes. Other games.
But finally, there's energy from the quarterback position for that team. That has been the problem. There wasn't any energy.
I think he's the man.
Osweiler came there, and he was such a dud.
Oh,
you had to bare your teeth.
Oh, my God.
No energy from Tom Savage.
No, not at all.
Deshaun Watson, you come into the game, and the team's excited to see what will happen with him. He is a boost of adrenaline straight into the arm of this Houston Texans team.
Without a doubt.
I mean, although he might not be very effective, I think a letdown like you saw against Jacksonville is not going to happen again.
No.
But it doesn't mean they're a wonderful team, the Texans, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, they are. Other scores from Sunday. That game was Thursday night. So other scores from Sunday. Baltimore is now 2-0 after a 24-10 win over the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland looks kind of decent. I mean, they're hanging in there with these teams. They hung in with Pittsburgh week 1. And they hung in with their second straight division rival as well. The Panthers, boy, that offense looks miserable, even with Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Stewart, Kelvin Benjamin. I mean, they won 9-3 over the Bills. I mean, that might be a credit to Sean McDermott's as a head coach. Now, still his defense with Buffalo, but Carolina only winning 9-3. You got to be cause for concern as just Cam Newton got hurt again, and he just doesn't look the same right now. The Cardinals squeaking away from the Colts in overtime. I found this one laughable because both teams don't look that good at all, especially the Colts without Andrew Luck, and they still found a way to lose that game, even with a better quarterback than Scott Tolzien and Jacoby Brissett, and they still lost this game in overtime at home.
But Pagano actually knew the team he was playing against this week, so from that standpoint...
So maybe that's why it was a little closer this week. Tennessee, 37-16 over Jacksonville. Tennessee looks pretty good. Jacksonville, I don't think is as good as they were last week, but they're at least improved. But it just goes to show you, I think the Titans are going to be running this division. My Eagles, Mike, tough loss on the road against a really good AFC team in the Kansas City Chiefs, 27-20. The Eagles were playing with my emotions a little bit, scoring very late touchdown, about 14 seconds left, and then they got the onside kick, Mike, bouncing to the Kansas City 38-yard line with 5 seconds to go, but they couldn't complete the Hail Mary to tie the game. But overall, the defense played pretty well. The biggest problem for the Eagles, Mike, I mean, despite the secondary injuries, they hung in there with the Chiefs somehow. The run game for the Eagles is absolutely atrocious. They didn't give the ball once to LeGarrette Blount. They relied on Darren Sproles for 10 carries for 48 yards. They abandoned it after that. And then, I think it was like 2 carries to Wendell Smallwood, none to Corey Clement. Carson Wentz was the leading rusher. You can't have that happen.
Maybe the Eagles should have signed Adrian Peterson.
Maybe they should have signed Adrian. Maybe they should trade for Adrian Peterson. I would welcome that.
Honestly,
I would welcome that.
That is not
at this point.
outside the realm of possibility.
No, it really isn't at this point. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but they have literally no running backs. I want them to feed Corey Clement. I love Corey Clement, Glassboro, New Jersey native, went to Wisconsin. We've seen him play. He's a beast. Went undrafted, but they need to give him a chance because he's on the roster for a reason, not just for a special teams play. The Eagles, they'll play the Giants next week.
The Patriots are back.
Game. Patriots are back.
But that secondary doesn't have everything sorted out yet.
No, but I think they'll get it together. I mean, Belichick's tutelage and also the defensive coordinator. Oh, my God, I forget his name now. The defensive coordinator for the Patriots. Matt Patricia, that's right. Thank you.
I'm telling you, this guy should be a head coach.
They'll get it together. Patriots 36-20 over the Saints on the road.
Oh, I could kill my father for this one.
The Vikings. The
Steelers.
Yeah, the Steelers beat them 26-9 in Pittsburgh.
The Steelers aren't that good. Yeah, okay. The Vikings are going to.
Both teams are very good. They both have a very good defense. The problem is the Vikings. I don't think we're going to win that game anyway, even with Sam Bradford at quarterback. But they threw Case Keenum out there because they wanted to be careful with Bradford's knee. Case Keenum's not that good, and they better hope Bradford can stay healthy. I don't blame him for. I mean, if he couldn't go, I don't blame him for not playing Bradford in that game. It's on the road against an AFC opponent. It's not that big of a deal in my mind. Tampa Bay looks pretty good against obviously the Bears. They stink, but the Bucs look pretty good after taking a unexpected week off. Jameis Winston, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, they all look pretty good. Jacquizz Rodgers looked pretty good in mop-up duty in place of Doug Martin, who was suspended the first 3 games. The Dolphins squeaking away from the Chargers. It seems like the Chargers, Mike, just cannot win these close ones, even in front of their own 30,000-seat stadium in a soccer stadium at home. The Dolphins get the first win of the Jay Cutler era.
Wow.
How about
That's
that?
all I have to say.
I'll just say, wow. We won't even talk about your Jets. The Raiders beat them 45-20. The Broncos, big surprise of the weekend, defeated the Cowboys handily, 42-17.
And did you see that interception that Prescott threw into the hands of Des Bryant that Ezekiel Elliott didn't even run back?
I did.
That's despicable.
You know what? I hope that means something, and this Cowboys team's going to kind of blow up internally.
I think so, because Jerry Jones does not have the constitution or the fortitude to actually confront somebody like that. That's not going to happen. I hope this team implodes. Actually, I like Jason Garrett a lot. I actually think that Jason Garrett's a nice guy. I have nothing against Prescott, but Jerry Jones, I would love to see this all blow up in his face.
It very well could be. I mean, yesterday did not look good at all. Redskins squeak away from the Rams on the road, 27-20. The Seahawks barely get by the 49ers at home, nonetheless, 12-9. Did not look good for the Seahawks, and the Falcons handled the Packers last night, 34-23. That was all the Week 2 scores. It's the Detroit Lions are going to go on the road to the New York Giants tonight. That's Monday Night Football.
And this will be interesting because
it will be.
It should be a close game.
We'll see if Odell Beckham plays tonight.
We'll see if Odell Beckham plays, but. The Brandon Marshall question's always out there, but I mean, this is going to be a really, really interesting game. And the Brandon Marshall thing is actually pretty confusing to figure out because everyone says, "Oh, Odell Beckham's back; it's a different offense." But when Odell Beckham's back, he's going to get. He is Eli's guy, all the balls are going to go his way. I'm not sure Braden Marshall's going to see an improvement in production necessarily. Odell's here, and then if Odell's not playing, he still doesn't have a connection with Braden Marshall. So a lot of things to figure out that Giants offense, and that defense is not 100%.
Well, one thing before we end the show here, one thing I will say about this Giants team, if they struggle like they did in Week 1, I think it's Davis Webb time. That's going to do it for us for the opening drive. Mike Antosiewicz.
Davis Webb.
Yeah, maybe Davis Webb. I think they should start him if they continue to be as bad as they were Week 1.
At quarterback.
At quarterback, yes, at quarterback.
Oh, you're insane.
At quarterback.
You are insane.
Hot Take Monday, baby. All right, we'll be back next week, next Monday, 8 to 9 a.m. As always, you can also catch Mike and I on the call this Saturday for Rutgers football at Nebraska, starting at 3:30 Eastern Time. That's when the game starts up, but you can catch the Rutgers football pregame show at 2:30 p.m. as well. That's going to do it for us. Make sure to keep it locked for further programming. You've been listening to the opening drive here on 88.7 WRSU FM in New Brunswick and also online at WRSU.org.